Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tyndall Air Force Base's second Industry Day. Industry Day is a collaborative effort where senior military and business leaders come together to discuss innovations and the future of Tyndall Air Force Base and the impact to the community. We realize there's no better way to rebuild Tyndall Air Force Base without the partnership that includes both local community and industry. This is our second Industry Day, and what we hope will be a series of exchanges to help identify innovative ways to move forward as we rebuild Tyndall together. On behalf of the Air Force, we're pleased that you've taken time away from your busy schedules to assist us with the rebuild at one of the Air Force's most important bases in its inventory. I'm Don Arias. I'm from the 325th Fighter Wing Public Affairs Office, and I'll serve as your moderator for this event. We ask that you please silence your cell phones. Thank you. At this time, I ask that everyone please stand and join me in honoring our great nation and the flag by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please take your seats. I'd like to welcome our distinguished visitors that have joined us today. Please hold your applause until the end of the introductions. This program is going to end at noon sharp. We're going to stay on time, so we'll wrap this up by noon. And besides, I have to get this suit back to the funeral parlor by 1. So we'll get through it, and we'll try and stay on time. So please help me welcome. We've got the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Installations, Environment, and Energy, the Honorable John Henderson, Executive Director of the Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center in Mississippi, Ms. Lorna Estep, the Director, Air Force Civil Engineer Center, Mr. Terry Edwards, Regional Business Director, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Mr. Theodore Brown, Executive Director of the Tyndall Program Management Office, Brigadier General Patrice Melanson, the Air Force Director of Civil Engineers, Brigadier General John Allen, 325th Wing Commander, Colonel Brian Laidlaw, Director of the Tyndall Program Management Office, Colonel Brent Hayden, from the Bay Defense Alliance, Mr. Tom Neubauer, and Mr. Glenn McDonald. We also have with us today Panama City Mayor Greg Brudnicki, and also welcome to all congressional staff members, Bay County officials, colonels, chiefs, and special guests. Thank you for all coming. I'd like to direct your attention to the video screens for a special message from United States Senator Marco Rubio from the great state of Florida.
Hi, I'm Marco Rubio, and I'm honored to serve the great state of Florida in the U.S. Senate. Tyndall Air Force Base plays a crucial role in our national security and is an indispensable part of our Panhandle community. When Hurricane Michael devastated the Panhandle communities last year, no one was left untouched. That includes Tyndall Air Force Base. I've been working with my colleagues since that day to ensure that Tyndall and local communities get the funds needed to fully recover in the aftermath of Hurricane Michael. And I remain committed to seeing that Tyndall is fully rebuilt, and I hope that my colleagues will put aside petty differences and get a funding bill to the President as soon as possible. While Tyndall has a long road to full recovery, I'm proud of what the base leadership, Air Force personnel, and their families have been able to accomplish in the months since the storm. Thank you to all of the brave men and women stationed at Tyndall Air Force Base who serve our great nation. God bless all of you, and God bless our country, the United States of America.
At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Tom Neubauer, President of the Bay County Defense Alliance, to the podium. Mr. Neubauer is a longtime member of the Bay Defense Alliance and was the recipient of the 2018 Community Leadership Award and the Association of Defense Communities. This national level award recognized that under Tom's leadership, the Bay Defense Alliance has become one of the best examples in the country of how to bring community leaders, military families, and installation commanders together around a shared mission of supporting military readiness. We welcome him to the podium.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Don. Welcome to this beautiful Panama City campus of Florida State University. This is another Bay County perfect weather day. It's like this every day here, mostly in April. You know, there are more than 450 people in this room. People have committed considerable time and expense to be here on behalf of Tyndall Air Force Base. So on behalf of this great American defense community, I'd like to say thank you for joining us today, for your interest in being part of what will be remembered as the most historic transformation of Tyndall Air Force Base. If you're not excited about what's happening in our community, there's something wrong with your exciter. Our community is humbled by the unwavering commitment that the Air Force leadership has made to rebuild Tyndall. The Air Force continues to deliver on that commitment by sending us the nation's leading military engineers, community planners, program managers, subject matter experts, and today we'll have the opportunity to hear from many of them. Our entire community is getting better every day, and thanks to the outstanding support of our county commissioners, our city commissioners, the Florida legislature, and certainly our Florida congressional delegation and their professional staffers who are here today, we're moving forward quickly. In this same venue on the 31st of January, those in attendance were challenged to consider submitting their best ideas for the base of the future. You'll hear much more about the amazing response that we've got today, but the community would just like to take a moment to say thank you for all of those responses and for the ideas that keep coming. You've expressed a number of great white papers that were submitted, and we'll hear a little bit more about that today. We hope today will be informative and worthwhile. We want to thank you. We want to thank the members of the community that are here, the members of the Bay Defense Alliance, the Military Affairs Committee, and Chair Doug Moore. Thank you for making this community as strong as it is. We hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neubauer. At this time, I'd like to welcome to the stage Brigadier General Patrice Melanson, Executive Director of the Tyndall Program Management Office. She recently was given the reins of the $3 billion rebuild. She will be leading the charge these next 3 years as we rebuild Tyndall. General Melanson.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Once again, we've got standing room only, and that is absolutely fabulous. That really tells me your interest is high, and we are absolutely looking to engage, continue that engagement that we have with our industry partners. To assist us as we kick off Industry Day number 2, I would like to welcome the Honorable John W. Henderson to the podium. Mr. Henderson is the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Installations, Environment, and Energy. He's responsible for providing guidance, direction, and oversight for all matters pertaining to the formulation, review, and execution of plans, policies, programs, budgets, and Air Force positions to meet Air Force installations, energy, environment, safety, and occupational health objectives. We welcome Mr. Henderson from the Pentagon down here to the lovely Panhandle of Florida. Honorable Mr. Henderson.
Good morning. First, I want to thank Tom Neubauer and the entire team here in the Tyndall area and the community and your leadership with the ADC for your partnership and for everything you do for Tyndall Air Force Base and for all your support for the Air Force. Your efforts and hard work, I want to say, is absolutely appreciated, and thank you. Also, I just want to take a minute and express the gratitude to the team at Tyndall Air Force Base. There's an entire team of folks there that have been working under extremely difficult circumstances under the leadership of Colonel Laidlaw, under the leadership of Colonel Brent Hyden with the PMO, and they're doing amazing things for the Air Force, along with some of the support with AFCEC and the Air Force IMSC, who surged a lot of functional capability in here to support Colonel Laidlaw and the recovery. That's been a very painful surge for the organization, but they've done an amazing job with it, and I just want to say thanks, and on behalf of the Secretary, just express our gratitude for everything that you guys are doing here. Most importantly, I want to thank all of you for taking the time and making the effort to be here with us in partnership today. This mission can't get done without your help. We can't do this alone. This is a long-term reconstruction effort, and so I appreciate the patience, and I appreciate everybody's understanding about the time it takes to put a plan like this together, to include the resourcing part of it. But the fact that you're back here for a second Industry Day means a lot to us. And again, thank you for the time and effort to be here today, and thanks for your partnership. I specifically asked our team for a few minutes this morning to clarify some things that are going on in D.C. To ensure that our way forward is clear. So I'm going to briefly discuss, I'm going to start talking about the FY20 budget for the Air Force. I'd like to translate that into some of the solvency challenges we're having with FY19, operations and maintenance funds, and then take that to kind of a way forward strategically. So I'm not going to talk a lot about Tyndall today, but I am going to talk a lot about some of the resourcing that underpins a way forward here today. If you will all bear with me, show some patience, and allow me to go through this. The Air Force fights from our bases. We project power from our bases, we generate readiness from our bases, and we provide safe and healthy communities for our airmen and their families from our bases. Air Force readiness and lethality is inextricably linked to the infrastructure readiness and the resilience at our bases. Over the past several weeks, we've defended our budget request to Congress. We're asking Congress to team with us to fundamentally transform how we manage billions of dollars of infrastructure investment over the next 30 years. We've developed a new infrastructure investment strategy in conjunction with John Allen's team in the Pentagon and the Air Force Civil Engineering Center, which will shift from a worst first approach to one that lowers the overall life cycle cost of infrastructure, maximizes buying power, and addresses the $33 billion backlog in deferred maintenance. To achieve these goals, we'll divest 5% of our failing infrastructure instead of repairing it. We'll employ powerful analytics to ensure that recap investments are made at the least expensive cost point of the life cycle of our infrastructure, and we'll leverage category management acquisition principles to achieve a scale of economies across the infrastructure portfolio. To enable this, we will need stable, predictable funding of no less than 2% of our plant replacement value annually, and we've been successful doing that for the most part for FY20 and we're still working on it in the rest of the FYDP, but we're working that. We'll need a highly capable engineering and acquisition workforce with the capacity for this increased work, and we'll need fundamentally changed business practices in the Air Force and a unified effort across the Air Force. Now, you all are a part of this. You're part of giving us some of the capacity, therefore part of our unified effort going forward. Therefore, the FY20 budget request for the Air Force for infrastructure totals about $11.3 billion and balances installation readiness, capability, and capacity while also providing the means for us to implement the strategy that I just summarized. This request includes $2.7 billion in military construction funds, which supports combatant commander priorities, new weapon system bed down, and recapitalization of aging mission-critical facilities. We are also asking for $4.1 billion in facility sustainment, restoration, and modernization, which represents a $2 billion increase over our FY19 request. For those of you who are keeping track of percentages, that's about a 40% increase over last year's request. Unfortunately, several emergent unbudgeted requirements have caused us to divert significant FY19 operations and maintenance funds away from other infrastructure and readiness priorities, which, without supplemental funding from Congress, may impact our FY20 budget. Hurricane Michael, one of only 4 Category 5 storms to ever hit the United States, devastated this area and caused nearly $4.7 billion worth of damage here at Tyndall Air Force Base alone. In February, record spring flooding in the Missouri River Basin caused estimated damages to Offutt Air Force Base in excess of $400 million, and that number continues to rise. To date, we've spent over $400 million of other O&M accounts while working concurrently with Congress and the administration for the supplemental funding required to pay for this, since there's clearly no way for the Air Force to absorb this magnitude of cost within the existing FY19 budget. Natural disasters should not be the determining factor. It should not determine if a community keeps its base or not. The strategic military value of our bases is more than just buildings and pavement. Airspace, ranges, location, community partnership, and surge capacity have significant strategic military value. And through this lens, Tyndall Air Force Base and Offutt Air Force Base are exceptionally valuable capital infrastructure and essential for our national security. For example, Tyndall Air Force Base sits on a 29,000-acre peninsula, of which only 30% of it is inhabited. We don't have problems with encroachment issues, and runways are far from populated areas. Tyndall's airspace is unique and priceless. Its proximity to world-class training ranges maximizes available fuel for training. The two overland airspaces to the north and east are suitable for nearly half of the fighter formal training unit syllabus and all of the air control squadron syllabus. And the over-water airspace to the south begins immediately adjacent to the base boundary and goes as far as Key West. Because of these key attributes, fighter squadrons from all over the world come here to train for combat archer and checkered flag exercises. Offutt Air Force Base hosts extremely important real-world missions every day where they support the National Command Authority. Offutt Air Force Base is also home to the Strategic Command Headquarters and other defense critical infrastructure that is absolutely essential for our nation's defense. We do not have the funding to continue recovery of these bases without supplemental funding from Congress, which has historically been available for natural disasters of this magnitude. Without supplemental funding, we are forced to make tough decisions to meet a myriad of other basic readiness challenges inside of the Air Force. We've been working closely with the Department of Defense and Congress to identify our recovery requirements for over 6 months in Tyndall's case. And rest assured that we've done our part. We have cash flowed initial recovery and response efforts from our operations and maintenance funds that were originally budgeted in FY19 for other critical needs on the assurance that we could replenish those funds through supplemental funding later in the year. Cash flowing the immediate emergency response and repairs in support of disaster recovery had the effect of increasing our spend rate for the past 6 months of this FY, and that is simply not sustainable. Therefore, in order to preserve funds to cover critical readiness and mission requirements for the remainder of FY19, we are forced to withhold funding on 61 facilities, sustainment, restoration, and modernization projects that were scheduled to start this summer, located in 18 states. So this is bigger than just a Tyndall problem. The funding challenges are having a ripple effect on bases all over the United States. Additionally, as of yesterday, we will withhold funds to start any new projects here at Tyndall Air Force Base in support of initial facility repairs and recovery operations. These were actions that we were trying to avoid, but now they're an unfortunate necessity. We have had tremendous support from the Department of Defense, from the administration, and from congressional members, but that has not translated into the significant supplemental funding required to recover from the catastrophic damages caused by Hurricane Michael and the flooding in the Midwest. The Department of Defense was successful in getting a major reprogramming action approved, which resulted in $200 million in additional funding for the Air Force for disaster recovery. But so far this year, we've already spent $400 million in initial response, continuity of operations, mission relocation, initial repairs and remediation to facilities, and still need another $350 million in FY19. Our Air Force readiness also takes a hit in mid-May when we have to start deferring maintenance on some of our fleets, and again in September when we start cutting flying hours. In light of all this, I want to be very clear about separating what are FY19 solvency issues in our operations and maintenance accounts and what we are doing here today, which is planning for the long-term reconstruction for Tyndall Air Force Base, which will primarily use military construction funds, which is a different line of funding with a different set of rules. The Air Force is committed to the administration's goal to rebuild Tyndall Air Force Base. It was always a fighter base, and our intent is to keep it a fighter base. Therefore, this week, we are honoring our commitment to host this second Industry Day at Tyndall Air Force Base. We will brief on the progress of our master planning efforts and discuss our proposed way forward to rebuild the base with our industry partners. Thank you very much for being here. Subject to those things that are totally out of our control, like whether Congress decides to fund this or not. But this discussion today about the future requirements and future funding is different than the current year's solvency challenges that we're working through at Tyndall right now, And I'd just like to take the opportunity to publicly say, ask you all to keep those separate, because we're going to continue to fight through the FY19 challenges, and we're going to concurrently continue planning for what we need to do to rebuild this space. Works on contracts and task orders will continue if they were previously funded. We will continue our planning and coordination efforts to rebuild Tyndall Air Force Base and Offutt Air Force Base, and continue to work with the Department of Defense, Congress, and the administration on strategies to provide the resources needed to recover both of these bases. And there are several other bases that were damaged by whether it was earthquakes, wildfires, and other bases in the area that with the storms and the flooding, but we're primarily talking about Tyndall and Offutt in this case. And we will do this concurrent with having to make hard decisions in the current year funding. I just want to wrap up by saying Tyndall and Offutt Air Force Bases have always been there for our nation. Our airmen and their families have shown an indomitable spirit and amazing resilience in the face of Mother Nature's wrath. Now there is an opportunity for our nation to be there for our airmen, for our mission, and for our bases that support our mission, and for the communities who support our bases. There is no way for the Air Force can do this on our own. This has to be a team effort, and we need our help from our teammates in the administration and Congress to get this done. Thank you again for taking time to be here today. It is awesome to see so many former friends and acquaintances and familiar faces inside this community, and just know it's very heartening to see this amount of technical expertise, experience in military engineering come together as one team to help us solve what is a national problem. So thank you again for being here today, and enjoy the rest of the industry day.